Part 1, First Contact Crisis. The Neldorian warship Dominion cut through space like a blade of obsidian, its hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Commander ZYX stood on the bridge, his scaled skin iridescent under the command console's glow. 6 fingers tapped methodically against the armrest of his gravity chair as he surveyed the holographic display of the human outpost. Pathetic, he muttered, mandibles clicking with disdain. Their defenses are practically non-existent. Lieutenant Nira, his second-in-command, nodded in agreement. Her emerald eyes narrowed as she studied the readouts. The humans established this mining facility only 3 cycles ago. They've barely had time to implement proper security protocols. All the better for us, ZYX replied. The crystallized deuterium they've been harvesting will fuel our fleet for the next expansion phase. The High Command will be pleased. The Neldorian Empire had been observing humanity for decades, watching as the primitive species stumbled their way into interstellar travel. Humans were considered a curiosity at best, fragile, emotional creatures who somehow managed to survive despite their biological inefficiencies. No natural armor, minimal strength, laughable sensory capabilities. The Empire's scientists had classified them as a Tier 3 species, no significant threat, potentially useful as labor. Prepare the boarding parties, ZYX commanded. I want minimal damage to the facility and its equipment. The humans are expendable. The raid was supposed to be straightforward. Textbook intimidation tactics followed by resource acquisition. The Dominion's tactical systems had calculated a 98.7% success probability with negligible resistance. Those calculations failed to account for Olivia Reeves. Deep within the outpost, Olivia was elbow-deep in the guts of a filtration system when the first proximity alarm sounded. At 34, she'd spent the last decade bouncing between remote engineering posts across the solar system and beyond. Her dark hair was cropped short for practicality, her olive skin marked with the scars of someone who learned mechanical engineering through trial and error rather than simulations. What now? She muttered, extracting herself from the maintenance shaft. The station supervisor, Hammond, was already on the comm system. Unidentified vessel approaching. All personnel to emergency stations. Olivia grabbed her toolkit and sprinted toward the command center. She passed panicked colleagues in the corridors, some frozen in disbelief, others rushing to secure vital systems. The outpost housed only 23 people, engineers, miners, and a single medical officer. No military personnel, no defensive specialists. When she reached the command center, Hammond's face was ashen. It's not pirates, he said, his voice hollow. It's something else. The main viewscreen showed a ship unlike anything Olivia had ever seen. The vessel's design defied human architecture, organic yet mechanical, with hull plating that seemed to pulse like muscle tissue. Are they responding to hails? She asked. Hammond shook his head. Nothing. And our distress beacon can't penetrate whatever field they're projecting. The outpost shuddered as docking clamps engaged against the hull. Metal screamed against metal, and the power fluctuated, emergency lights casting long shadows across frightened faces. We need to evacuate, someone suggested. To where? Hammond replied grimly. We're 3 weeks from the nearest outpost even at maximum burn. Olivia's mind raced, calculating options, variables, survival odds. The maintenance tunnels, she said suddenly. They connect to the emergency pods. If we can. The blast doors to the command center disintegrated in a flash of energy. Through the smoke stepped Commander ZYX, flanked by 4 heavily armed Neldorian soldiers. Their exoskeletons gleamed, weapons humming with barely contained power. Hammond stepped forward, hands raised in the universal gesture of surrender. We are a civilian installation. We pose no threat. The bolt of energy that struck him mid-sentence left nothing but ash. I have limited patience, ZYX announced, his translator rendering his clicks and hisses into flat, emotionless standard English. This facility is now property of the Neldorian Empire. Resistance is inefficient. The remaining humans stood frozen, shock and fear radiating from them in waves that ZYX's sensory organs could detect and savor. All except one. Olivia maintained a calm he found unusual. Her vital signs, while elevated, showed none of the chaotic patterns typical of terrified humans. Instead, he sensed something far more interesting: calculation. You, he pointed a clawed digit at her. Identify yourself and your function. Olivia Reeves. Lead Systems Engineer. ZYX's inner eyelids flickered with interest. Perfect. You will assist in the transfer of all deuterium processing data to our systems. And if I refuse? Her voice betrayed no fear, only curiosity. ZYX tilted his head, studying her as one might examine an unusual insect. Humans have such limited imagination when it comes to suffering. I could demonstrate the alternatives, but it would reduce efficiency. Olivia nodded slowly. I'll show you the processing center. The command center erupted in whispers of betrayal, but she ignored them, leading ZYX and two guards through the corridor toward the heart of the facility. The commander dismissed his remaining soldiers to secure the rest of the outpost. Your cooperation is unexpected but appreciated, ZYX commented as they walked. Perhaps humans are more rational than our studies suggest. We're full of surprises, Olivia replied, her fingers trailing along the wall panel as they passed a junction. To ZYX, it appeared as casual nervousness. In reality, she was activating the emergency protocols Hammond had never had the chance to initiate. The processing center was a cavernous space filled with specialized equipment. Crystallized deuterium, the most efficient fuel source discovered in the last century, glowed softly in containment fields. Harvested from the ice rings of distant planets, it had revolutionized human space travel. Apparently, the Neldorians had taken notice. Impressive for such primitive technology, ZYX observed. Your species shows occasional ingenuity, if limited vision. Olivia moved to the main console, fingers dancing across the interface. Our limited vision got us here without conquering anyone else. ZYX made a sound that might have been laughter. Conquering implies resistance. Most species recognize the inevitable and submit willingly. Like you expect us to do. Your species has no natural advantages. No evolutionary traits that would allow you to survive against superior lifeforms. Your technology is rudimentary, your physical form fragile. What alternative do you have but submission? Olivia's hands paused over the console. You've studied humans, but I don't think you understand us at all. Enlighten me while you transfer the data, ZYX said, amusement evident in his tone. Humans don't need natural advantages. We create them. She pressed a final sequence of commands. The lights in the processing center dimmed momentarily. For instance, right now I've rerouted emergency power to the magnetic containment fields. ZYX's sensory organs detected the shift in energy patterns too late. The containment fields around the crystallized deuterium inverted, creating a cascading reaction. Not enough to destroy the facility, Olivia was too skilled an engineer for such crude solutions, but sufficient to generate an electromagnetic pulse that rippled through the immediate area. The Neldorian soldiers' exoskeletons seized up, locking them in place. Their weapons, dependent on the same power systems, went dead in their hands. ZYX himself remained mobile, his commander's armor had redundant systems, but his communications and advanced targeting were offline. He raised his weapon toward Olivia with newfound respect and growing rage. Clever, he admitted. But futile. Olivia was already moving, diving behind a processing unit as energy bolts scorched the air where she had stood. We're also really good at running away, she called out. There is nowhere to run, ZYX replied, advancing methodically. My ship controls this outpost. My soldiers outnumber you. Your primitive trick has merely delayed the inevitable. Maybe. But we're also stubborn as hell. Something clattered across the floor toward ZYX, a small cylinder cobbled together from what looked like spare parts and tools. He recognized it too late as an improvised electromagnetic disruptor. His armor systems failed completely, leaving him immobilized inside his own exoskeleton. Olivia emerged from cover, a cutting torch in one hand, repurposed from her toolkit. She approached cautiously, the blue flame casting dramatic shadows across her determined face. "Here's what you need to understand about humans, Commander," she said, kneeling beside his frozen form. "We've spent our entire evolutionary history being the underdog. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or most naturally armed species on our planet. But we're still here because we're adaptable. We observe. We learn. And we're really, really good at turning disadvantages into strengths." She reached for his communication device, intact but inactive after the pulse. "Now, let's discuss terms for your soldiers' withdrawal from my outpost." ZYX's mandibles clicked in fury. "You think one human can stand against the might of the Neldorian Empire?" Olivia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I think you're about to find out exactly what humans can do when pushed too far. And I promise, Commander, you won't enjoy the lesson." Outside the processing center, alarms blared as the outpost's remaining crew implemented Olivia's emergency protocols. The Neldorian invasion had expected minimum resistance from a helpless, inferior species. Instead, they had awakened humanity's most dangerous quality, ingenuity born from desperation. And as Commander ZYX was beginning to realize, they had severely underestimated what humans were capable of when survival was on the line. Tactical disadvantage. Commander ZYX's voice transmitted through the Dominion's command network with barely contained fury. "Initiating Emergency Protocol 739. The human engineer has deployed countermeasures." In the ship's tactical center, First Strategist Vrol received the transmission with disbelief. Humans were not known for effective resistance. Their databases classified them as physically inferior, technologically unsophisticated, and strategically predictable. "Deploy second-wave assault units," Vrol ordered. "Full combat protocols authorized." Across the outpost, the remaining Neldorian soldiers adjusted their tactics. Unlike their immobilized comrades in the processing center, they still had full functionality. They moved with precision through the corridors, their exoskeletons enhancing already formidable strength and speed. The humans would be overwhelmed by superior force as calculated in the initial mission parameters. Or so they believed. In the maintenance tunnels beneath the main deck, Olivia reunited with 5 other crew members. Technical specialist Desmond Walsh, a wiry man with a perpetual furrow between his brows, had already set up a makeshift command post using salvaged equipment. "Hammond?" he asked as Olivia crawled through the narrow access hatch. She shook her head grimly. Desmond closed his eyes briefly, processing the loss. "I've got the commander's comm device," Olivia said, holding up the Neldorian technology. "And I've locked him and 2 of his soldiers in the processing center. The EMP won't hold them forever, but it buys us time." Desmond nodded, his fingers flying across a jury-rigged console. "I've established contact with Javier and Patel in the Eastern Quadrant. They've barricaded themselves in the medical bay with Dr. Roth." "What about the others?" "Unknown," Desmond replied. "Internal sensors are offline, and the aliens are jamming standard communications." Haruki Tanaka, the outpost security officer, though his role had been largely administrative until now, examined the Neldorian communication device with interest. His calm demeanor belied the gravity of their situation. "If I can decrypt their communication protocols, we might be able to listen in on their tactical channel," he suggested. Olivia nodded. "Do it. Meanwhile, I need to understand what we're up against." She turned to Femi Okafor, the station's xenobiologist. The young woman had been cataloging microbial samples from the ice rings when the invasion began. "What do you know about these aliens?" Olivia asked. Femi's eyes widened. "Neldorians. I've read theoretical papers on their physiology, but they've been largely isolationist until now. They evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme temperature variations. Their exoskeletons are partially organic, a biomechanical evolutionary advantage. They're stronger than humans, more resistant to environmental extremes, and their sensory capabilities operate across a wider spectrum than ours." "Any vulnerabilities?" Femi hesitated. "They process visual information faster than humans, but their auditory systems are less developed. They rely heavily on pheromone communication as a supplement to verbal exchange. And despite their exoskeletons, the connective tissue at their joints is relatively exposed." Olivia absorbed this information, her mind already formulating strategies. "What about their technology?" "Advanced, especially in weaponry and propulsion systems," Desmond interjected. "But their software architecture might be vulnerable. They developed along different logic paths than human systems." A sudden explosion rocked the tunnel, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling panels. The Neldorians were systematically searching the station, destroying anything that might serve as a hiding place. "We need weapons," Haruki said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Olivia shook her head. "We're a mining facility. The closest thing we have to weapons are industrial tools." "Then that's what we'll use," Desmond replied, pulling up schematics on his tablet. "The plasma cutters in Storage Bay 3. The compressed air canisters from the environmental systems. The mining explosives in the secure vault." Haruki's expression darkened. "Those aren't designed as weapons." "Neither were sticks and stones," Olivia countered, "but humans have been repurposing tools as weapons since we climbed down from the trees." She turned to the final member of their group, Luisa Mendez, the outpost's logistics officer. "What's the fastest route to the storage bays without using main corridors?" Luisa projected a three-dimensional map of the facility from her personal device. "Maintenance shaft 14 connects to the secondary cargo lift. If we can get there without being detected, it leads directly to the lower storage level." Another explosion, closer this time. Dust filtered through the ventilation grates. "They're getting closer," Desmond warned. Olivia made a quick decision. "Haruki, keep working on decrypting their communications. Femi, I need you to help Desmond compile everything we know about Neldorian biology and technology. Luisa, you're with me. We're going shopping for improvised weapons." As they prepared to move out, Haruki grabbed Olivia's arm. "The distress beacon? Still jammed. But if we can access the emergency shuttle's communication array, we might be able to bypass their interference. One problem at a time." Olivia and Luisa crawled through the claustrophobic maintenance tunnels, guided by Luisa's intimate knowledge of the station's layout. Years of managing supply logistics had given her a mental map of every shortcut and service route. "I never thought inventory management would become a survival skill," Luisa whispered as they navigated a particularly narrow junction. "Human adaptability," Olivia replied. "Using what we know in ways it wasn't intended." They emerged into a dimly lit access corridor that led to the cargo lift. The emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow that made shadows deeper and more threatening. Every few meters, they paused to listen for Neldorian patrols. "What's the plan once we get to the storage bay?" Luisa asked. "Improvise," Olivia said with a grim smile. Another human specialty. The cargo lift was functional but risky, its operation might alert the Neldorians to their location. Instead, they used the maintenance ladder alongside it, descending manually to the storage level. The storage bay was vast, filled with equipment for the mining operation. Plasma cutters designed to slice through ice formations. Explosive charges for breaking apart larger deposits. Environmental suits for extravehicular activity. Hydraulic exoskeleton frames to assist with heavy lifting. Gather everything we can carry back, Olivia instructed. Focus on items we can repurpose or modify. As they collected supplies, their communicators crackled to life. Haruki's voice came through with surprising clarity. Olivia, I've managed to decrypt part of their tactical channel. They're deploying something called hunter-seekers to flush us out of the maintenance areas. What are hunter-seekers? Louisa asked, fear edging into her voice. Based on the fragmentary data, they appear to be automated drones designed for close-quarter combat in restricted spaces, Haruki replied. And they're heading toward your position now. As if on cue, a metallic skittering sound echoed through the ventilation ducts. Something was moving inside the walls. Olivia and Louisa exchanged alarmed glances. How long do we have? Olivia asked. Minutes, maybe less. Olivia surveyed the equipment they'd gathered. Not enough time to get back to the others. They would have to make a stand here. Louisa, help me with this. She grabbed one of the environmental suits and began dismantling its power pack. We need to create a defensive perimeter. Working with frantic efficiency, they rigged the plasma cutters to the power packs, creating makeshift energy weapons. They positioned compressed air canisters at strategic points, modifying the release valves to create improvised concussive devices. The skittering grew louder. Through the grates in the ceiling, Olivia caught glimpses of metallic appendages, sleek, articulated limbs ending in what looked like sensory arrays and cutting tools. Almost there, she muttered, making a final connection in her jury-rigged weapon. Louisa, take position behind that cargo container. When they come through the vents, trigger the air canisters to disorient them, then I'll engage with the plasma cutter. Louisa nodded, fear evident in her eyes but determination in her stance. She had never been in combat, never expected to face alien invaders, but here she was, preparing to defend her life with tools meant for construction. The first hunter-seeker burst through the ventilation grate in an explosion of metal and dust. It was roughly the size of a large dog, but with 6 articulated limbs and a central processing unit bristling with sensors. It oriented itself instantly, identifying the humans as targets. Now! Olivia shouted. Louisa triggered the remote detonator. The compressed air canisters exploded, filling the room with a deafening concussion and debris. The hunter-seeker's sensors were momentarily overwhelmed by the sudden chaos. Olivia lunged forward, the modified plasma cutter humming with dangerous energy. She aimed for the joint where the hunter-seeker's central processor connected to its locomotion systems, the vulnerable spot she had identified based on its design. The plasma beam cut through the alien alloy with surprising effectiveness. The hunter-seeker emitted a high-pitched electronic wail before collapsing into a smoking heap of twitching limbs. But there was no time to celebrate. 2 more hunter-seekers emerged from different vents, learning from the first one's demise. They moved with greater caution, splitting up to flank the humans. Louisa, behind you. Olivia warned, turning to face the third drone that was now descending from the ceiling directly above them. The storage bay erupted into chaotic battle. Louisa managed to disable one drone with a lucky shot from her own modified tool, but the third evaded Olivia's attacks with disturbing intelligence, adapting to her tactics in real time. They're learning, Olivia realized with growing dread. Each one we fight makes the others smarter. The remaining hunter-seeker launched itself at Olivia, its cutting tools extended. She dodged, but not quickly enough. One of its blades sliced through her sleeve, drawing blood. The wound was superficial, but the message was clear, the machines were getting better. In desperation, Olivia grabbed the hydraulic assist frame, equipment designed to help miners lift heavy objects, and strapped it to her arms and legs. The crude exoskeleton whirred to life, doubling her strength but limiting her mobility. When the hunter-seeker attacked again, Olivia met it head-on. Enhanced by the hydraulic frame, she seized the drone mid-leap, the servos in the frame groaning under the strain. With a mighty effort, she slammed it against the wall, once, twice, until its processor cracked and its limbs went limp. Panting, bleeding, but victorious, Olivia turned to Louisa. "We need to get back to the others. More will come." They gathered what supplies they could carry and retreated toward the maintenance shafts, moving as quickly as their burdens allowed. The hydraulic frame, damaged in the battle but still functional, allowed Olivia to carry 3 times what she normally could. As they climbed back toward their makeshift command center, Olivia's communicator crackled again. "The Neldorians are pulling back to their ship," Haruki reported, confusion evident in his voice. "I don't understand why. We haven't driven them off." A cold feeling settled in Olivia's stomach. "They're not retreating. They're preparing for something worse." Through the station's viewport, visible from their elevated position in the maintenance shaft, they could see the Neldorian warship reorienting, its weapon systems coming online. "They're going to bombard the station," Olivia realized with horror. "They've decided if they can't have the deuterium, no one will." Back on the Dominion's bridge, Commander ZYX, now freed from his temporary imprisonment, stood with rigid posture, his pride wounded more than his body. "Commence targeted weapons strike," he ordered. "Destroy everything except the processing center. We can salvage the deuterium from the ruins." First Strategist Vrul complied, but with visible hesitation. "Commander, our intelligence on human capabilities appears to have been flawed." ZYX turned his multifaceted eyes toward his subordinate. "Explain." "The humans' adaptive capabilities exceed our models. They have repurposed mining equipment into effective weapons. They have neutralized our hunter-seekers with primitive but innovative tactics. They are demonstrating problem-solving skills that our simulations did not predict." "They are still inferior," ZYX insisted. "One minor setback does not change evolutionary reality." "With respect, Commander," Vrul countered, "evolution is not measured in physical superiority alone. The ability to adapt, to use intelligence to overcome physical limitations, this is also evolution. Perhaps we have underestimated them." Outside the viewport, the station's exterior shimmered as the Dominion's targeting systems locked on. In moments, the bombardment would begin, and the brief, unexpected resistance of a handful of desperate humans would be extinguished. Or so the Neldorians believed. Inside the station, Olivia Reeves was already formulating a counter-strategy that would once again prove the danger of underestimating humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage, the ability to turn desperation into innovation, and innovation into survival. Alliance of necessity. The station shuddered as the first volley from the Dominion struck its outer hull. Warning klaxons blared through every corridor, and emergency bulkheads slammed into place, compartmentalizing the damage. Olivia and Louisa rejoined the others at their makeshift command center, breathless from their narrow escape from both hunter-seekers and the initial bombardment. "Status report," Olivia demanded, shrugging off the damaged hydraulic frame. Desmond's fingers danced across his console. "Structural integrity at 70% and falling. The Neldorians are being precise, they're taking out our communication arrays, propulsion systems, and life support backups. Methodical destruction. They want us helpless but not immediately dead," Femi observed grimly. Haruki looked up from the Neldorian communication device. "I've intercepted more of their tactical data. They're preparing a second boarding party once they've sufficiently damaged our defensive capabilities." "How long?" Olivia asked. 20 minutes, maybe less." Olivia paced the small space, mind racing through options and dismissing most as quickly as they formed. The odds were overwhelming. A handful of engineers and scientists against a warship with superior technology and trained soldiers. In a conventional fight, they had no chance. But humans had never survived by fighting conventionally. "The deuterium," she said suddenly. "That's what they want. That's why they're being careful with the processing center." Desmond nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "If we can't defend the station, We make the prize too costly to take, Olivia finished. Louisa, what's our deuterium inventory? Louisa pulled up the inventory logs on her tablet. 18 canisters of crystallized deuterium, each containing enough fuel to power a mid-sized vessel for approximately 6 months. And if they were to destabilize simultaneously? Louisa's eyes widened. The energy release would be catastrophic. A grim silence fell over the group. What Olivia was suggesting wasn't just a defensive tactic, it was potentially suicide. There must be another way, Femi protested. Olivia shook her head. We can't outfight them. We can't outrun them. But we might be able to outthink them. She turned to Desmond. Can you set up a remote triggering system for the deuterium containment fields? Something that would give us leverage but not necessarily require immediate detonation? A slow smile spread across Desmond's face. A bluff? Not entirely, Olivia clarified. I want the threat to be real. I want the ability to actually do it if necessary. But what I really want is a bargaining chip. Another impact rocked the station, this one closer to their position. Dust rained from the ceiling. We're running out of time, Haruki warned. Get to work, Olivia ordered. Desmond, rig the deuterium for remote detonation. Haruki, keep monitoring their communications. I need to know the second they prepare to board again. Femi, I need everything you can tell me about their command structure, who has authority to make decisions, how they handle negotiations. What about me? Louisa asked. You're with me. We're going to prepare a welcoming party for our guests. While the others worked on their assigned tasks, Olivia led Louisa back toward the main corridors. The station's interior was now a landscape of destruction, twisted metal, exposed wiring, emergency force fields containing hull breaches. What exactly are we preparing? Louisa asked as they collected more equipment from damaged sections. A demonstration, Olivia replied cryptically. They worked quickly, setting up what appeared to be a series of defensive positions. But Olivia was being strategic in what she revealed and what she concealed. The obvious barricades and traps were just the surface layer, distractions from her true plan. 23 minutes later, the bombardment ceased. The sudden silence was almost more unnerving than the explosions had been. They're launching boarding craft, Haruki reported over the comm, multiple entry points. Different approach than before. They're learning, Olivia acknowledged. Just like their hunter-seekers. She returned to the command center, where Desmond had completed the deuterium rigging. A simple interface on his tablet now controlled the containment fields of all 18 canisters. One command and the whole processing center goes critical, he explained. The resulting explosion would destroy the station and severely damage anything within a 1,000-kilometer radius. Including their ship? Desmond nodded grimly. It would certainly cripple it, maybe destroy it completely depending on their shield capability. Olivia took the tablet, securing it to her wrist. Then we have our leverage. The station's security systems alerted them to multiple breaches. The Neldorians were inside again, this time with a larger force and more aggressive tactics. It's time, Olivia said, standing straighter. Haruki, can you patch me through to their command frequency? Yes, but they'll be able to trace the transmission to our location. That's what I'm counting on. Using the captured Neldorian communication device, enhanced by Haruki's modifications, Olivia broadcast directly to the Dominion. Commander ZYX, she began, her voice steady despite the danger. This is Olivia Reeves of the Human Mining Outpost. I'm requesting immediate cessation of hostilities to discuss terms. There was a long pause before ZYX's voice replied, the translator rendering his tone as simultaneously amused and irritated. The human engineer. You have courage, if limited intelligence. What terms could you possibly offer that would interest me? Your life, Olivia replied simply. And the lives of your crew. I've rigged the deuterium processing center to detonate if certain conditions aren't met. The explosion would destroy the station and cripple or destroy your vessel. Another pause, longer this time. When ZYX responded, the amusement was gone. A desperate bluff from a desperate species. I'm transmitting proof now, Olivia said, nodding to Desmond. He sent a data package showing the deuterium containment field's current status and the deadman switch Olivia now controlled. You would die as well, ZYX pointed out. Humans have a long history of self-sacrifice when faced with tyranny, Olivia countered. We call it defiance. I'm offering you a choice: withdraw your forces and negotiate for access to our deuterium through proper diplomatic channels, or risk everything trying to take it by force. The communication went silent. Olivia and her team waited, tension thick in the air. Outside their hiding place, they could hear Neldorian troops moving through the corridors, closer now. Finally, ZYX replied. Your proposal is being considered. However, I require verification of your claims. I will meet with you personally to assess the situation. Olivia exchanged glances with her team. This was both an opportunity and a trap. Agreed, she said. The processing center. 1 hour. You may bring 2 guards, unarmed. I will bring 2 of my people. Acceptable, ZYX replied after a brief hesitation. But be warned, human, if this is deception, what remains of your outpost will become an example to your entire species. The communication ended. Immediately, Haruki hissed, You can't trust him. I don't, Olivia assured him. But I need to buy us time, and I need to see what we're really dealing with. It's too dangerous, Femi protested. The Neldorians don't value negotiation the way humans do. In their evolutionary history, displays of force always triumph over diplomacy. Then we'll give them a display they won't forget, Olivia promised. Desmond, Haruki, you're with me. The rest of you, continue with the contingency plan. If we fail, you know what to do. The processing center, despite being the most valuable part of the outpost, showed signs of the recent battle. Equipment was overturned, panels scorched by energy weapons, and the air still carried the acrid smell of burnt circuitry. The containment fields holding the crystallized deuterium hummed with energy, the precious fuel glowing with an ethereal blue light. Olivia positioned herself directly between 2 containment pods, the tablet visibly strapped to her wrist. Desmond and Haruki flanked her, each carrying modified mining tools that now functioned as credible weapons. Remember, Olivia murmured to her companions, this isn't about winning a fight. It's about establishing consequences. Commander ZYX arrived precisely on time, accompanied by 2 soldiers whose armor was more elaborate than the standard troops. Despite the agreement, Olivia noted that while they carried no handheld weapons, their exoskeletons were clearly weaponized with retractable blades and what appeared to be integrated energy projectors. ZYX himself looked different from their first encounter. His exoskeleton had been repaired and enhanced, with additional armor plating and sensory appendages. His multifaceted eyes fixed on Olivia with predatory intensity. Engineer Reeves, he said, his translator rendering the words with artificial politeness. Your resistance has been instructive. Few species surprise the Neldorian Empire. We aim to educate, Olivia replied dryly. I assume you've verified my claims about the deuterium? ZYX inclined his head slightly. Your rigging is crude but effective. A simultaneous detonation would indeed cause significant damage to both the station and potentially my vessel. Then you understand our position. We cannot win a direct confrontation, but we can ensure that victory costs you more than it's worth. A logical assessment, ZYX acknowledged. However, it creates a stalemate rather than a resolution. Olivia took a calculated risk. Which is why I'm proposing an alternative. One that recognizes mutual benefit over mutual destruction. ZYX's inner eyelids flickered with what might have been interest. Elaborate. The Neldorian Empire wants deuterium. We have the expertise to harvest and process it efficiently. Instead of conquering our outpost, consider a partnership. We continue operation under our own authority but allocate a percentage of our yield to the Empire. You suggest we become trading partners? ZYX's translator couldn't quite capture the incredulity in his response. I suggest we both recognize reality, Olivia countered. You could destroy us and take the existing deuterium, yes. But you'd lose the knowledge and efficiency of our operation. Future yields would be reduced. Instead of a one-time acquisition, you could have an ongoing supply. ZYX paced slowly, his armored feet making metallic clicks against the floor. His guards remained motionless, but Olivia could sense their tension, their readiness to attack at the slightest provocation. Humans truly are peculiar, ZYX said finally. Faced with annihilation, you propose commerce. We prefer survival and mutual benefit over glorious destruction, Olivia replied. It's kept our species alive despite our physical limitations. Before ZYX could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights began pulsing, and an automated voice announced, "Warning, unidentified vessels approaching. Collision course detected." Haruki activated a nearby console, bringing up the external sensor array. Multiple ships, he reported, urgency in his voice. Not human. And not Neldorian either. The color drained from Femi's face as she studied the readings. Scavengers, she whispered. The Krell Collective. Explain, ZYX demanded sharply. Opportunistic raiders, Femi said. They monitor conflicts and swoop in to claim abandoned technology and resources. They must have detected your attack on our station and assumed it would be ripe for scavenging. ZYX barked commands into his communication device in his native language, too rapid for the translator to process. When he turned back to the humans, his demeanor had shifted subtly. It appears our negotiation has been complicated by external factors, he said. The Krell are known to the Empire. They are primitive but numerous, and they contaminate everything they touch. They're jamming both our communications, Haruki confirmed, his fingers flying across the console. We can't call for help, and I'm guessing your ship is experiencing the same interference. The station rocked as the first Krell vessels attached themselves to the outer hull like parasites, cutting tools already beginning to bore through the weakened sections. How many? Olivia asked. At least 20 smaller craft, Haruki reported. And one larger vessel coordinating them. ZYX's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation that needed no translation. The Krell are not technically sophisticated, but they are scavengers without equal. They will strip this station to its skeleton within hours. And the deuterium? Olivia asked. They will take it, use it crudely, waste most of it, ZYX replied with evident disgust. They understand its value but not its proper handling. Another impact shook the station. The breach alarms multiplied, the Krell were entering through multiple points simultaneously. It seems we have a common enemy, Olivia observed carefully. ZYX studied her for a long moment, his alien features unreadable. Then he made a gesture to his guards, who straightened to attention. A temporary alliance may be tactically sound, he conceded. The Krell must not be allowed to acquire the deuterium or your processing technology. Agreed, Olivia said, extending her hand in the human gesture of agreement. ZYX looked at the offered hand with confusion before understanding dawned. He reached out one clawed appendage and clasped her wrist in what his species considered a binding gesture. Until the Krell are defeated, he agreed. Until the Krell are defeated, Olivia echoed. And just like that, predator and prey became reluctant allies against a common threat. The station's warning systems continued to blare as more Krell boarding parties breached the hull. Time was short, and trust was shorter. ZYX activated his communication device again, this time allowing the translator to function. All Neldorian forces, new directive, engage and eliminate Krell borders. Protect the processing center at all costs. He turned to Olivia. Your people should arm themselves. The Krell are not selective about what, or who, they scavenge. We've already started, Olivia assured him, nodding to Desmond who revealed several of their improvised weapons. But we'll need more than mining tools converted to weapons if we're going to drive them off. ZYX hesitated only briefly before making a decision. Lieutenant, he addressed one of his guards, distribute secondary armaments to the human defenders. Basic plasma rifles only. The guard's posture registered surprise, but he complied without question, sending the order through his communication channel. Now, ZYX continued, turning back to Olivia, we must coordinate our defense. The processing center is the primary target to protect, but we cannot allow the Krell to establish a foothold anywhere in the station. Agreed, Olivia said. Haruki, get me a station-wide comm channel. We need to alert everyone still alive about the new situation. As Haruki worked, the sounds of battle began to echo through the corridors, energy weapons discharging, metal tearing, and the distinctive screeching vocalizations of the Krell raiders. The uneasy alliance had formed just in time. The real test was about to begin, and both human and Neldorian would discover whether cooperation could overcome mutual suspicion in the face of a greater threat. In the shadows of the processing center, surrounded by the soft blue glow of crystallized deuterium, Olivia Reeves and Commander ZYX began to plan their joint defense, an unprecedented collaboration between species who, just hours earlier, had been locked in mortal combat. For the humans, it was another example of their defining trait, adaptability in the face of changing circumstances. For the Neldorians, it was an unsettling departure from established doctrine. For both, it was survival.